Hey guys, this is Dave with Audio Win, and I have the Hisenior Mega 5 EST Plus bass. And no doubt most of you watching this video are familiar with its predecessor, the Mega 5 EST, and well, its practically legendary status within the community. And this, of course, is the follow-up, and as the name indicates, the Bass Plus version brings more, well, so in terms of accessories, you do get quite a bit. You get this very nice sheepskin carrying case. You also get an adapter, and this is the 4.4 to 3.5 adapter, which I am going to come back to that in a minute. You get a ton of ear tips, I think 12 pairs in total, including a couple of pairs of foam tips, plus a tip case, which is quite handy. You then get a cleaning cloth, a cable strap, and for some reason I also received this 3.5 cable as well, and I think I know why, but again, we'll circle back to that in a moment. Now, as far as the price, this does jump up in price a little over the original. The original MegaFest was $549, while this one is $589. And the shells are made of a resin, and they have a semi-custom shape, so fit and comfort have been really good for my ears. As for the driver configuration, it consists of 5 drivers in total, 1 custom dynamic driver, 2 Knowles balanced armature drivers, and then 2 Hisenior EST drivers. And these are not just random drivers they threw in here. These are all really good drivers, and it also uses a 4-way crossover, which is really nice. As for the faceplate design, you can see they've used a red faceplate for the right and then a black faceplate for the left side. It is cool, and you can tell the craftsmanship and the finish of the shell is certainly of higher quality. And of course, I'll try to have some good B-roll running in the background. But the black faceplate, while it's maybe not as noticeable in certain lighting conditions, it actually does have a little bit of a sparkle to it, just like the red. It's just a little bit harder to see because it is very subtle, but it is there, and it looks quite nice in certain lighting. Now, as for the cable, it is exceptionally nice, nicer than the cable that comes with the original MegaFest. It's not super soft. It is still what I would consider to be softer than average, and as you can see, it's quite robust, and it just looks great, especially with the metal hardware. It just looks and feels like something you might expect with a higher end set. Now, this is the 4.4 version, but again, they also sent me this 3.5 cable, and at first I was a little confused because they've also provided this really nice adapter. But then after doing a little research, I discovered that the initial release of the Bass Plus version came with a 3.5 cable, and it also came with a 3.5 to 4.4 adapter. However, I guess there were some issues with the way the adapter was wired, and there was the potential, however unlikely, that certain devices, if they did not have proper protection, could potentially get damaged. And that was brought to the attention of Hisenior. So now they've also made a 4.4 cable available along with this 4.4 to 3.5 adapter. And I guess they also felt it would be good to include the extra 3.5 cable, I guess, just for good measure. And if I understand correctly, Hisenior has now also offered to allow those who purchased the original 3.5 cable with the 3.5 to 4.4 adapter to send just the cable and adapter back in exchange for this 4.4 cable and this 4.4 to 3.5 adapter. And I have to commend Hisenior for that. Sometimes companies don't always do the responsible thing, and I think this is the kind of response that I can really get behind, and it's something that can really set a company apart, and they have certainly gained my respect. So Hisenior, good on you. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to sound. So I should probably preface this by clarifying that I understand that this is obviously not the original MegaFest, but they are clearly trying to build on the MegaFest's tuning and are probably just shooting for a little bit of a different demographic, bass heads, or those who just like to have a little variety in their collection, which is pretty much describes me. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I understand and acknowledge that the goal here was probably more focused on simply offering just a bassier variation of the MegaFest with upgraded accessories. And my guess is they may have known there would be a small sacrifice in technical performance with this type of bassier tuning approach. And I should also remind you that I do typically prioritize tuning over technical performance. So what type of approach are we talking about here? So this new version basically takes the same approach to the tuning of the treble and the upper mids as the original, maybe with some very subtle differences in the treble, but it adds a substantial bass boost. I think about 5 dBs over the original. And again, the top half of the tuning still kind of follows more of the same meta tuning approach, but you have a pretty significant amount of not just sub bass energy, but also mid bass energy as well. And that extra mid bass is actually having a little bit of an adverse effect on the mid. So let's go ahead and do the sound breakdown and address that right out of the gate. So in terms of bass energy, this is certainly north of neutral and is starting to delve into bass head territory, in my opinion. So this is taking into account the amount of mid bass energy combined with the sub bass energy. It has more mid-bass energy than any of my other bassier IMs, more than the Diva, with the switch on the blue dot. Mind you, of course, the bass boost with the Diva is more sub-bass focused, and the Diva does have more sub-bass energy. It's also more bass than the i600, more than the Xuanwu Gate, more than my Open Audio Mercury. I know that's random, I need to sell that. Point is, though, this is a pretty bassy IM with lots of that energy being focused around the mid bass. Although technically, if you look at the graph, it's not really mid bass focused, I guess, because you do have about equal amounts of sub bass energy as well. But I think maybe because of where the bass shelf starts, which is a little earlier, I think around 300 hertz as opposed to 200 hertz, it introduces a pretty significant amount of warmth and weight, which on one hand, that does mean it's going to bring a little more kick impact, more punch. And there were definitely some genres like electronic, pop, and also classic rock. It does great with classic rock that benefited from that extra mid-bass energy. On the other hand, it also does introduce just a small amount of bass bleed, which ultimately did affect the overall mid-range clarity. So the bass in a nutshell, if you are looking for lots of bass energy, this has that. It has good extension, good dynamics, good impact. It's got warmth to male vocals and also some instruments that land in the lower mids. They just sound really nice and rich and have a really good weight to them. However, again, it is impacting mid-range clarity a little bit. And if I'm being honest, I don't really think it's significant enough to be a distraction. That said, the mid-range does really do a nice job at rendering vocals and instruments very naturally. And while micro contrast isn't the best and it's not the most textured and detailed mid-range for this price point, it does have good clarity overall. As a matter of fact, vocals, guitars, they still cut through nicely. And even though when you kind of step back and look at its presentation on the whole, the bass does maybe dominate the presentation, and it is definitely the star of the show because of the extra energy in the pinna region. For the most part, vocals, again, they still maintain really good energy, and they certainly have enough energy to maintain the listener's attention and maintain good center focus overall. And mid-range clarity is still good overall. It's just not going to be able to compete with the original MegaFest or with some of the better sets out there right now in this price range, like the Oracle MK2, again, the Juan Gate i600. But as you move into the treble, a lot of that detail and definition really starts to pick up and it starts to come back into the picture. And it's significant enough, I think, to kind of help offset some of the issues in the lower mid-range. But even better, because of the way they approach the tuning of the upper frequencies with very few peaks, very few dips, it just comes off as sounding very smooth and very natural, but without any loss in clarity or without it sounding like it's lacking energy at all. Cymbals or any other instruments that land in those higher frequencies not only sound very natural, but also have really nice amounts of detail and definition. So despite some of the issues going on in the lower mids, when I step back, I do still feel like this is a fairly resolving set overall. So the details are there, but maybe, again, not quite to the levels of the Pilgrim, Juan Gate, SA6 MK2, Oracle MK2, which of course that brings us to technical performance. So I prefaced this portion of the review by stating they were likely aware that by adding this amount of mid-bass energy that they may be sacrificing some technical aspects of this IEM. And I do feel like that is the case here. So detail levels are good, but there is better out there. Soundstage is what I would consider to be about average with, I would say probably close to the Pilgrim, as is imaging and layering. I've already done some comparisons that should give you some indication of where I feel this lands in terms of the competition. In terms of technical performance, as I said, it's not the best out there. But as I stated earlier, I also prioritize tuning over technical performance. And if I'm being honest, I think they did a really good job with the top half of its tuning, vocals and instruments. Again, they sound very natural, which that's huge for me. And I do still feel like there is enough upper, mid-range, and treble energy for the most part to offset some of that mid-bass energy. And if I had one thing that I would have maybe approached a little differently, it would have been where they started the bass shelf. I would have liked to see it maybe a little closer to the 200 hertz area and then maybe add more sub-bass energy. That said, I can still definitely appreciate the added fun, the punch, the richness that this approach brings. But I guess for me, at the end of the day, I think I'm still more likely to reach for something more neutral with a controlled bass boost like the Pilgrim, Performer 8, or if I do want more bass, the i600 or the Juan Gate. That said, I have had a lot of fun listening to this set. And if you are looking for a set that has a pretty substantial bass boost with the focus, again, in the mid bass and with a focus on dynamics, punch, impact, but you also want something that is still going to reproduce instruments and vocals naturally and also maintain fairly good technical performance as well, not to mention the cable is excellent, then this might be a good fit for you. So that concludes my review of the Hisenior Mega 5 EST Plus bass. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch. If you like my content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would please comment on this video, please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.